Okay, this is going to be Basil Biggs at Gettysburg, Part 5, here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And I'm at the corner of North Stratton and York Street. Just around the same time as the Hanover burials, as we looked at in Part 4, Samuel Weaver, Basil Biggs, and their burial crew parked their burial wagon near the intersection of York and Stratton Street and found the headboard of an unknown soldier who had just been identified due to a photo of the dead soldier had in his hand of his 3 children. That soldier was Sergeant Amos Humstead of the 154th New York Volunteers. At one time, a house owned by Judge Russell stood here, and they entered the lot and disinterred the body. He was placed in a white pine coffin after Weaver had gone through the pockets. Amos's headboard was nailed to the side of the coffin. Samuel Weaver wrote Amos's name, company, and regiment on top of the coffin and entered the information in his record book, probably the same record book he's holding in video 4. The casket was then loaded onto the wagon, which contained at this point 6 coffins, and they headed toward the Gettysburg National Cemetery, or the Soldiers' National Cemetery. This has been Basil Biggs at Gettysburg, Part 5, here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. At Gettysburg, Part 6 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook, and we're in the Gettysburg National Cemetery. Now, after the wagon was loaded up on North Stratton Street, the wagon was brought here by Weaver and Biggs and the burial crew with the other New York soldiers from the 11th Corps that were killed on North Stratton Street. A trench was dug for the coffins about right here, and Amos Humstead was buried by Samuel Weaver, Basil Biggs, and the burial crew with the other New York soldiers. Now, at the top of his grave after he was buried, and we're going to walk over to the grave right here, was placed a wooden headboard. And that wooden headboard was later replaced in 1865 by the stone that sits here today that's made out of granite. So today, Sergeant Amos Humstead of the 154th New York Hardtack Regiment is buried here in the New York plot section of the Gettysburg National Cemetery. The trench that Samuel Weaver and Basil Biggs dug was right here, and he was buried just a few weeks after the Battle of Gettysburg in July of 1863. So Gettysburg's probably largest human interest story, the soldier that was killed, unknown, found with a picture of his 3 children in his hand, and that picture was circulated all across newspapers in the North until his wife recognized who that soldier that had died was, is buried right here, and he was buried by a very humble and simple African-American man, Basil Biggs of Gettysburg. This has been Basil Biggs of Gettysburg, Part 6, on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Biggs at Gettysburg, Part 7 here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. And we are here at the Peter Fry Farm along the Taneytown Road. Just up the road about a half a mile is the Lydia Leicester House, which was General George Gordon Meade's headquarters. Now, with his money and freedom for African Americans because of the end of the Civil War, and of course the 13th Amendment, Basil Biggs purchased the former Peter Fry Farm on the Taneytown Road. He used the money that he got when he was raising the dead from their graves and burying them in the National Cemetery, the thousands of bodies that were buried. He used the money from that to purchase this very farm here in 1865, just after the Civil War had ended. The house was built around 1850, and the buildings here consisted of a barn, a hog pen, a house, a woodshed, and a summer kitchen. And this kind of completes the story of this amazing African-American man, a man who was born in Maryland, which was a slave state. His mother died at a very early age, and he was left $400 for education, but he went out and worked for a living, and he escaped slavery, though he lived just on the Mason-Dixon line, and he had to begin in the School of Hard Knocks, working for other people, renting homes as a tenant farmer, and working his way to the top, not only to freedom, which the Civil War and the 13th Amendment and the Battle of Gettysburg took a great role in, but also in working to make enough money to someday, when his freedom to purchase property was granted, to buy his own farm. This farm, though it will always be called the Peter Fry Farm after the name of the occupant during the battle, this was Basil Bigg's farm here post-war in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. This has been Basil Bigg's at Gettysburg, Part 7 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Biggs at Gettysburg, Part 8, the final part here on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook. Basil Biggs died on June the 6th, 1906, and he was buried in the Goodwill Cemetery, which would later become Lincoln Cemetery, an African-American cemetery in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Now, Lincoln Cemetery was founded by the organization the Sons of Goodwill, of which Basil helped to organize. The cemetery was founded in 1867 for the proper burial of Gettysburg African-American citizens and Civil War veterans. Originally it was called the Goodwill Cemetery, and its name changed around 1920 to the Lincoln Cemetery. It is very likely that the grotesque job of disinterment led Basil Biggs to want to make sure that his own people were given a proper and respectful burial. And of course, with the end of the series, I do want to say that often we hear about people like Mary Virginia Wade, the heroine of Gettysburg, or the hero of Gettysburg, John Burns, and other different civilians that played an important role, but often Basil Biggs has gone unknown and often overlooked. He buried more bodies than Elizabeth Thorne, and those bodies were already in the ground and decayed and rotten, so the smell was even worse than they were a few days following the battle. Though he didn't give his life like Jenny Wade, it can often be debated whether Jenny Wade was simply a hero or she just didn't listen to good instruction by hiding in her basement. Basil Biggs was a hero. He was born at a time when slavery and being black in America was almost a crime. And yet he fought for his freedom and also narrowly escaped capture here at the Battle of Gettysburg. He worked his fingers to the bone and very hard to earn what he had, purchase his farm, and what we call the Great American Dream. Basil Biggs is a true American hero, and very often his story has been overlooked. I hope that the video series here has done some justice to Basil Biggs and his amazing civilian story here at the Battle of Gettysburg. This has been Basil Biggs at Gettysburg, Part 8 on Gettysburg Battlefield Facebook.